Welcome to the Treasury Update podcast, presented by Strategic Treasurer, your source for interesting Treasury news, analysis, and insights in your car, at the gym, or wherever you decide to tune in.
Welcome to the Treasury Update podcast. This is Craig Jeffery. I'm your host today. This episode is different from a lot of our episodes. I'm interviewing Tram Anh Nguyen from the CFTE organization. We'll hear about that. We'll look at some of the background challenges of AI, how we should think about future jobs. We'll even discuss the book, The AI-Fication of Jobs, and what needs to be done about this from a Treasury perspective. Tram, very good to have you on the Treasury Update podcast.
Yes, no, thanks a lot. Great. It's such a great pleasure to join the podcast, and it's a great honor to be part of this. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Maybe we could start off with what is the CFTE? What led you to founding this organization? And just tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, thanks a lot. So I started to build and to run the Center for Finance, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. And we set it up back in 2017. It was because I'd spotted a big knowledge gap in the financial industry. Traditional finance professionals like myself, I used to be in traditional finance, were performing really well at what they did, but had little understanding of technology. The gap I spotted was in the provision of education on that technology, or rather the lack of it. We couldn't find anywhere to acquire the right knowledge, the right skills, and that's why we decided to launch and build CFT, which is a global educational platform, a tech platform that enables professionals in finance, but not only today, to upskill and reskill so that they can do and join the future of finance industry. And so we aid finance professionals in adapting and learning online so that we can provide, personalized learning for professionals to really quickly learn about the emerging trends, whether it's on finance, technology, AI, open banking, payments, anything that, can make them to perform much better in their job, in the day-to-day job. And that is from the industry, for the industry. So that's how we have now a leading platform of education in fintech, AI, and digital finance. We are quite global because we're connecting over 1,000 industry experts who are teaching on our program, which could be people from regulators. So we connect a lot with regulators and central banks teaching on our platform. That could be people in treasury, people running digital in their own bank, or fintech entrepreneurs. And so we have now a thriving community of more than 160,000 alumni in 130 countries.
So a giant learning and training network or community. Excellent. The background and challenge of AI, how is that impacting organizations? We've seen lots of disruptions over the past 150 years, and many of us have studied those in school. How big is this disruption? How do we need to consider this challenge?
The challenge is huge, and I would like to add, and I forgot to mention, but my role today and the challenge is really, really big. And that's why my role today is really working alongside governments, policymakers, the whole industry leaders and academia to lead initiative to equip professionals that in this new area of AI and digital finance at global scale, where today we're really pushing initiative in lifelong learning. So adult education with governments and providing education at scale. And it's so big that a couple of months ago, last year, I founded also the Future Skills Forum, which is an initiative focused on preparing the workforce of the challenge of today and tomorrow. You mentioned, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that, is that before founding CFT, I was not in education. I started my career 18 years ago in traditional finance. I used to be a capital markets and working in treasury for Standard Chartered in New York. Then I moved to London and I was a wealth manager at UBS in London, then advising family offices. So my career has always bridged the world of global banking and fintech. When I used to be in traditional finance, jobs, it was much easier to predict what would be your career path. What would be your career path? You would start with a career and you move, gradually from analyst to associate to global head, or you can go to MD, etc. But that would be quite predictable. Today, with technology and because of AI, is really, really, really difficult to basically predict what would be your job of the future, even though you are in your current role. And so to come up to your question, I think what we're facing today, and the numbers speaks with all the investments, and you have read all the news, hundreds of billions of dollars or billions of dollars in the US, but in Europe last week, there were the AI summit. There are lots of investment being made in AI, a commitment from governments and the industry to really build AI centers, and a lot of AI companies and technology on how do you make your job and your work much more efficient, more productivity. For me, what I really, really care, it's about the people. And when you look at the investment spent into people, is really, really little, is only 3%, which for me, it's a big alert and it's very critical. The investment spent in AI today, it's all on the technology side. For us at CFTE, this is an alert, this is an alarm, which we'd love to address. And I can spend a lot of time talking about how do you build a workforce which are prepared, getting digital skills and AI skills so that they can really thrive in the financial sector. So that's why we want to spend a lot of time creating training program at scale with the industry to prepare the workforce of tomorrow.
Yeah, excellent. You talked about a more predictable career path. And I think about like in finance and the accounting arena, there's a lot more career paths that are standard and predictable. Treasury has always had a certain level of unpredictability. And what you're saying is, given some of these changes, everything's going to become a lot more unpredictable in terms of career paths. That idea of these future jobs and thinking about future jobs. I did want to turn to the book, The AI-Fication of Jobs, and we'll put a link to the book in the show notes. Maybe you could tell us, weaving in the AI-Fication of Jobs book and some of the content there, how should we think about the future of jobs? I know the career path is going to be less predictable. We need to invest in people, but how else should we be thinking about future jobs?
Yes, no, thanks a lot. I think CFT has always been working in looking at a job of the future. We spend a lot of time working with governments, as I mentioned, and I can mention a few examples if you like later, but we spend a lot of time working in collaboration with governments and regulators. In some of the countries, we are actually partnering to really help to analyze what would be the job that are being transformed because of technology. And based on that, how do you analyze the skills of people? And based on that, CFTE will, with the government, create curriculum so that the workforce are prepared for the job of the future, for the skills. And so we did that for the past, let's say, 5-6 years. And I can mention, some of the work that we have done in finance and technology, which we call fintech. And that was basically during COVID. I'll make the analogy between before and after. So before AI, or let's say the big wave of AI that, has just emerged, let's say 2 years ago, it was quite easy to analyze what kind of job you are creating. And for that, you would go to a company. And during COVID, what we did at CFT, because we knew a lot of job will be transformed. Because of COVID, not a lot of people can access to their traditional job. They had to move very quickly to digital job. And so what we did, and I actually connected with the 250 CEOs of fintech unicorns around the world, from the US, from Europe, from Asia. I talked to every one of them because I was really stressed and very alerted about the transformation. And what we care about is that people should not be unemployed. And I told them, could you tell me what are the jobs you are creating? All the 250 fintech unicorns around the world. We did the largest taxonomy of jobs. We analyzed 40,000 new jobs that didn't exist 6 months ago. And with COVID, 40,000 new jobs were created because of that big, transformation, because a lot of jobs were moving to digital. Based on that taxonomy of the 40,000 new jobs in fintech, we did a skills mapping. I would be very happy to share with you, the report. It's a very large report with all the jobs that we could create, and by talking to every single companies that are creating jobs. Today, it's a very, very different landscape. We cannot do that. It will take us too long to go. And basically, why am I saying that? Is that if you were to look at all the jobs that are being created and or transformed or disappearing because of AI, it will take much more longer. It's like, for example, and I will tell you one example so that it speaks to you perhaps a little bit better. But how do we today effectively prepare the workforce of the future? Traditionally, as I mentioned, we've relied on skills gap analysis based on the assumption that we know what the jobs of the future will be. But this approach is becoming increasingly outdated. Technologies like ChatGPT are disrupting traditional jobs faster than we can predict them, challenging our ability to forecast the types of jobs that will exist even in the near future. So I'll give you an example. It's October 2022, and you've mapped all the job roles of your organization and done a very comprehensive skills gap analysis. What happens a month later when ChatGPT is launched? A year later, some jobs have become obsolete already. Others have emerged. The carefully crafted strategy is totally now outdated. Suddenly, ChatGPT evolves and new players like DeepSeek emerge. Your carefully crafted strategy is now totally out. So what's your next move? How do you adjust the skills required have shifted almost overnight? You can't rely on predictable job, nor you can prepare if you don't understand the evolving skills with your organization. So we really need to think differently. And so the book of AI-Fication of job is giving you a framework to look not on the job, but you need to start on people, focusing on transferable skills rather than a fixed job description. Is no longer preparing for a specific role, but it's more talking about your people have a certain set of skills. They used to be, for example, working in marketing or perhaps in certain, jobs. And how do they basically, from their skills that they have gained, transfer those skills to another division or another type of skills. So it's much more about equipping individuals with adaptable skills that can evolve alongside technology. So that shift is in the book, and I would love, to invite everyone to come and read it, but it requires a very totally new mindset. The idea are based on three things: from predictable job to enabling adaptability, from filling gaps to building versatile capabilities, and for role-specific training to continuous and lifelong learning. So I think my view is that there's three trends that we see from the book. Is that it's really, really hard. It's let's say difficult to predict job of the future. And so it's like, for example, you go to, as I mentioned, a division, you try to craft all the job. Really difficult because this AI is coming. And for example, if you are a translator, and you had to do your translation, but you are now in competition with ChatGPT or a generative AI. You cannot change industry and go from being a translator to another industry, because you are still in competition with the ChatGPT, whether you are a translator in one sector to another. So we at CFT, we flip the perspective and put ourselves as the disruptor, the AI disruptor. And from there, how do you see the type of job or skills you need to do? And for that, we see emergence of three different, phenomenon. The first, there will be the emergence of supercharged professionals. So perhaps people like me, like you, doing really well in what they do and leveraging on tools, digital AI tools to enable us to be much better, more efficient, more productive in the way we do, enhancing our job. But we need to be able to use it. There will be mass displacement in a very big way. And it's already happening at a very global scale, where people not using AI or not being upskilled cannot do their job anymore, because AI is starting to replace them. And that is happening already. Third one, and that is really, really small portion of the population and the workforce, and we're seeing it already, is the disruptor, the creative disruptor, which we're seeing already with Sam Altman or Demis Hassabis, who has just received the Nobel Prize and is disrupting all his industry of chemistry because of AI, doing really, really well because he's leveraging technology to do his job in chemistry. So you're going to see three big trends. But the problem we are seeing is that if we don't start really enabling workforce to be digital and AI literate, and I can talk more about what do you mention about AI literate, I think there will be huge, massive unemployment, mass displacement, how we call that. And it's not an easy thing to say as an educational platform, but this is really the trend we are seeing.
Yeah, I think a couple, I'm not sure if these were examples from the books or ones that I thought about. One was, in the movie industry, people who build sets, the green screen is exploding, and it's shrunk. The number of sets that are built are way, way down. In translation, it's like if you're very technical and translate it, let's say technical treasury terms or medical terms, you have better staying power than just pure language translation. But it's like you said, that's a huge area of transformation. So the emergence of supercharged professionals, those that can use these tools that are extremely powerful to be a force multiplier of what they do. The mass displacement on a global scale, I think we see that industry by industry, as you had mentioned. And then when you mentioned the creative disruptor is changing the industry, is that, in the book, I'm trying to remember the section that talked about, creative disruption or creating entire new industries that didn't exist because it didn't make sense. Like you can't have build trains unless you have train tracks. You can't, now the tools exist there. I guess I just summarized some of what you said, but that was excellent view. And so the framework of thinking, as you said, is not necessarily having a specific skill, but having a set of skills that you continue to adapt so you can handle the adaptation. Because if you know what's coming, you can prepare for that exactly. That was your example, I think, of here's a skills gap analysis. You train people and it's ready to go. But the change is so fast that people have to be able to adapt. The adaptation has to be quick. And so they have to have the skills and the ability to continuously learn and continuously adapt.
You're right. We actually I'm glad that you like the framework. And we actually, on the book, if you read it, we have basically, has built a CDE model. So I don't know if you remember the CDE model, which really helps to think it's very useful, because instead of focusing solely on how workers or companies will react, we're using this framework to shift our perspective to AI as the innovator driver. So by adopting this broader viewpoint, we can anticipate how AI will impact jobs in industry. And so I don't know if you remember, but I'll summarize very, very quickly for people perhaps to be curious and go and learn more. But basically, the CDE model is very much how do you look at the ease of innovating with the effect on innovation. And it's from easy to hard, to replace, to complements. And C, it's for cheaper, better, faster. So how do you do things much cheaper, better, faster? That's a way to look at maybe people can be replaced if they start to do things like that. So you need to be augmented and use technology to augment as a person, to be supercharged, as you said, So if you look at cheaper, better, faster business model, then in that case, you should move and try to leverage digital so that you can be enhanced and augment the quality of the job. D, that would be for different. And that it's, as you said, for the different, that's the collateral effect. And that is for that has the impact on job is direct. AI replicates human tasks and skills themselves rather than just introducing new systems or tools. And AI can now take over specific tasks such as automating customer services or inquiring or generating detailed reports. It's no longer about changing how work is organized, but about directly influencing the work itself. And so it's AI ability to automate, augment, or even create new functions mean that the impact of job is quite immediate. And then after that, you have E for the different model of E to be more enhancing. So it enhances your job. So this CDE model really helped after that to create an edge canvas, which helps to map all the impacts on job. But I don't want to do this only on that, but it's I think to summarize the work that we're trying is that they are framework of thinking for job and skills. And so for an academia, for a company like ourselves, for a company like yourself and being, a society as its whole, I think we are in the world of abundance of knowledge. And before it was scarcity of knowledge. Now we are coming to an abundance of knowledge. A lot of, information are coming out there. It's just about how do you frame your thinking? How do you think? How, as an individual, as an entrepreneur, as a society and government, how do you think for your workforce? How do you shape, your framework so that you can really create job of the future? And that we spend a lot of time on that, thinking about the approach of how do you develop other type of skills than only perhaps hard skills. Which is, as an educational platform, we really want to transform the way of educating professionals. It has to change the way that we're educating professionals. And my view is that education as a whole for adults, you cannot train the way we used to train, which is purely academic. We need to, with that AI machine, to create other type of skills. And so what would be those skills? Very happy to mention our framework that we have developed. And a couple of years ago, I was asking, people, what do you think with AI coming into place? What would be the only single or the skills needed so that people can thrive in treasury? What do you think?
I would say there's an element of technical skills and knowledge that is foundational and has been foundational historically. I think because of the power of some of the automation and artificial intelligence and machine learning that can help us with things like payment security risk, I would say that making sure you have more of those people with those skills in the Treasury Department to adapt, because in some ways you're making your own tools, or you're using those tools that the vendors provide. So I would say it would be the shortfall is on having people who are skilled in those areas and that continue to learn.
You are right. I think it's really important for professionals today to develop the hard skills, which is the knowledge about, how for example, the tools are being used or the keeping updating on the hard skills. Very, very important. But it's not enough. It's not enough because otherwise you can be, let's say, that I wouldn't say that, but hard skills is very unique to yourself. But I think today, in today's world, we have designed a SHIME framework. A SHIME framework is really for us a new ways of thinking about skills for the new world. And it's 5 components: soft skills. People in any industry today have to have soft skills: teamwork, collaboration, adaptability, a lot of the working with people from totally different background. Soft skills, really, really important. Hard skills, even more important. That's why, we are in what we in at the industry we are doing is making sure that people, are learning. But it's not enough. It's still not enough in this world. We're really leveraging on technology. It's about industry knowledge. And that's why we spend a huge number of time working with the industry to get all the use cases so that we know very, very well what's happening in every globally, US, Europe, Asia, MENA. We talk with regulators. We spend a huge number of time looking at the regulation. What are the new regulation? Because regulation in the US will be totally different from the UK or for Asia or Middle East. So really close to the industry and knowing who is doing what in which vertical. So that's for industry knowledge. And that's why we are having you are doing what you are doing is that keep up, abreast of the trends and the emerging technology with your podcast. Mindset. I think when we started our career, or I started my career, perhaps, being in treasury, never had really a chance to build or think like an entrepreneur. Today, because of this big wave of technology and all the innovation that is happening, a lot of people need to cultivate, let's say, the culture of being an entrepreneur or think like an entrepreneur. I'm not suggesting everyone to quit their job and start doing the startup or being an entrepreneur, but how do you launch a project? How do you launch a product? What are the tools people need to use so that they can scale and adapt and do things? So thinking like an entrepreneur. And E is to have an experience in innovation, a degree, or having this opportunity to be exposed to a startup. But that SHIME framework today, we at CFTE, we have developed it and we're using in all our curriculum with organization, whether it's for a bank or a treasury or for a company or at government level. We want to make sure that those 5 skills are embedded in our syllabus. So it's really, really important. So we call that the SHIME framework.
Thanks. I think that was also in the book AI-Fication of Jobs, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's like 3 or so frameworks that were in the book that were really helpful. Some of them were quite new, a new way of thinking. Before we get into what needs to be done about jobs and changing things and what CFTE is doing, I had a question for you. As we think about jobs, there's the jobs that exist today in your company. What's happened if we go back a bunch of years, there was this arbitration of jobs. Like we would ship jobs to places where labor was less expensive. Everyone's arbitraging, moving it to, hey, get this done, for a quarter of the cost, the fifth of the cost. Even if there's 2 people that have to do it, it's less expensive. So that's been a significant trend, just being efficient globally. And then automation, if you have to have a person doing it, you want to arbitrage, use arbitrage. But if you can automate it, that's even more efficient from a cost to delivery standpoint. I think there were some examples in the book about, companies that did huge numbers of, those chatbots and other things that did an extremely good job on it. So companies that have outsourced jobs to, let's say, shared service centers, are most of those jobs going to go away and at risk through AI-Fication? And like in finance, I always think that's more in accounting or the shared service center arena, far less in treasury. Yeah, I'm trying to think what the question is. So it's like in treasury, there's certainly going to be disruption, but it's not like they're going to be bringing home positions because they didn't ship those positions over. Whereas many of the accounting jobs, they built up huge, places in different jurisdictions. So that's another area of disruption as well, I think.
You're totally right. We're seeing it already. The example that you are giving, it's already happening. We are seeing for smaller organizations, like startup or small and medium enterprise, where instead of hiring people, they would prefer to use AI to be much more efficient, cost effective. And so for me, the invisible trend is really happening, but is not known because they're not known. Those companies are not, large. They are small. So you have this big universe of SMEs and startups who are already leveraging on AI to do much 100 times or 1,000 times better than before. So you are seeing, of course, there will be a huge impact in certain countries. And those who are not, educating their people will really, really see, and I will say, mass displacement. And you will see that there will be much more, let's say, gap and between countries that are leveraging on AI and those who are not, because my view is that AI will create lots of opportunities. I'm really, really bullish on AI. However, I'm also really concerned about the possibility of putting people left behind even more. There will be people left behind even more in certain countries who are not leveraging on the knowledge and the use of AI to find opportunities for themselves. So that's why I keep saying it about, making sure we are supercharging our workforce at country level, because otherwise, as you said, some of the company that were using, let's say another type of outsourcing, the labor, but now they can be, automated. Then in that case, you will see, those people unemployed. Now we are seeing it in a big way already.
Yeah. So helping people or helping employees become supercharged, what needs to be done about that? You've described some of the frameworks of that. CFTE is doing quite a bit there. How do you go about helping, companies, let's say in treasury, do better at this? And at the country level, you described some of that. What needs to be done about it? Maybe the next level.
No, thanks a lot for asking. I think we need to really think of introducing for every company a strategy on AI literacy. Today, even more than at company level, but having a national strategy at country level. Some countries are already starting the work, and we are seeing some countries are starting to leverage on, all the things that can be done by spending time at rethinking how do you prepare people in AI. And so what we are seeing, the work that CFT has been done, very much focusing on providing lifelong learning solution, working alongside with government, policymakers, industry, leaders, and academia. Why we spend time with government? Because I think the importance of working with policymakers, create inclusive learning environment and empowering citizens through scalable education initiative will help the workforce, because inviting them to have a place in the discussion on AI or on emerging trends on workforce are really important. And I would say even more today and even more encouraging for adult education. The problem we're facing is that for decades and decades and hundreds of years, a lot of governments has only focused on children education. You have framework, you have policies, you have everything in place. Today, in certain countries, is non-existent. You don't have a structure for adult education. It's usually left to either the organization or even to the individual itself. But who do you start? Where do you start? Where do you learn? How do you structure your learning? So this is what we are starting to do on AI, and I'll tell you exactly what we are doing on AI literacy. But that's one thing, is how do you make sure that we have a very good discussion, close relationship with governments. Then at the corporate involvement, I think we need to make sure that there's continuous upskilling and reskilling of employee. So integrating long-term training built on resilient and adaptable workforce, identifying some of the jobs that may disappear, and make sure that we can transfer those workforce into new area, new division, new department, so that we don't left them behind. That's and last but not least, the individual responsibility. So for that, we encourage, as I said, a mix of key skills, including both, I mentioned hard skills, soft skills, etc. But I think those work is what we're doing on it's involving government, corporate, individual. I wanted to discuss about the AI literacy framework, and thanks a lot for giving me that chance, which is very much understanding and implementing AI literacy at national level, but also at corporate level. What does it really mean when you say, I want, to have an organization which is AI literate? What does it really mean? And for us, we spend a lot of time trying to define what it means. But that's only our definition. And again, that will change. But for us, the minimum criteria for AI literacy is on 5 criteria. First is getting the foundational knowledge of basic of AI concept, which means everyone in the organization should be able to explain the AI concept, what is a machine learning algorithm in a simple term, and know where AI is applied. Chatbot, smart device, all of this, any employee, let's say, should be really comfortable understanding it. After that, what we realized, what was really important is practical proficiency in AI tools. What do we mean by that? For every employee to be able to use AI tool effectively, both in their everyday job, task, and in a professional environment to enhance their productivity. That's how we want to make sure that people feel very comfortable using those tools. But it's like having the toolkit. They don't have to learn all the, hundreds of tools that exist, but enough for them, whether they're in treasury, to know how they do treasury better. After that, what we think was important, foundational knowledge of AI concept, practical proficiency in AI tools, was the critical evaluation of AI output. What does it mean? It means evaluate AI generative content critically, understanding AI that could make errors. So you need to, as a human, as a professionals, you need to make sure that you can sense when the chatbot or any AI is making an error. And so you need, or your decision should not be influenced by bias. And so you need to be trained for that. After that, it's a lot, but we think what's really important is responsible and ethical use of AI. Of course, we need to understand the importance of accountability in AI deployment and ensuring that AI decision can be explained and justified. So that is last but not least. And the last one is for me, one of the major important criteria is to make sure that you don't stop learning. Keep up with new AI trends, application, and tools, able to spot AI generative content and recognize AI's role in shaping this digital world. So you have the ability to really think that's generated by a machine. I know I can use it or not. I decide, and I can criticize and evaluate and give my critical thinking to say whether it's right or wrong. So that's our own definition of AI literacy, but we're inviting, everyone, and that's now an opening to, let's say, collaboration. We're inviting, banks, yourself, everyone, stakeholders, governments, FIs, treasury, everyone that wants to join our efforts. So we're interviewing more and more, stakeholders around the world to give their own definition of AI literacy. Why we're doing that? Because there are none at the moment. So by combining efforts with stakeholders around the world, we want to make sure that there's an AI literacy definition so that everybody can put, their work and their strategy on it.
I would love to talk more on that, or quite a bit more on that, but I'll control myself and just mention, 3 and 4, the points 3 and 4, the critical evaluation of AI output, whether it's bias or errors, or because it's pulling from what it's learned, and it learns from, things that might be inaccurate or incomplete or biased, or however that flows. And then number 4 was kind of like the no black box, where nobody knows how it works. Understanding, explain, and justify how it comes to it. Those two things together, I think, are really important, because we get to this mindset as like, oh, the machine told me, it must be right. And it makes errors, not just hallucinations. It goes off on tangents on certain things. It's like it pulled it from somewhere, but it didn't pull it from someone who is really thinking about this particular subject right. And when you use it, sometimes you're like, I didn't think about point 4. Point 7 is not really applicable. And then how does it come to those? Those seem to be extraordinarily crucial. So thank you for stepping through that. Let me just wrap up with a 2-part question. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about generative AI for corporate treasurers. You have an online program there. We'll reference some content in the show notes that they can get from CFTE.
Yes, we've developed, it was last year, with the Association of Corporate Treasurers. It's a body based in the UK where I used to be part of the panel board. And we've realized that generative AI will really change also the way that treasurers are doing their jobs. But not a lot of people are aware of how and the use cases. And so we've decided to co-create a program which is called Generative AI for Corporate Treasurers, which is an online course, which 3-4 hours learning through industry experts that are using and starting to use on a daily basis some AI and generative AI tools so that they can do better or enhance their jobs. So we've done that, and it's a very, very good program, which has helped already, a lot of treasurers, banks, and corporates to upskill their employees. But it gives you 2 things. It gives you the foundations of generative AI, which is exploring, of course, as I mentioned, the definition, the inner mechanism, and the evolution of generative AI. So we'll go through the history of AI and the key milestone. And then after that, we'll discuss about the robotic process automation versus AI versus generative AI and the comparison between the two. And then after that, more on the traditional AI in corporate treasury, what we're doing in cash management, liquidity management, and financial planning and analysis, the investment management and risk management, and all the compliance and reporting. So what's, the AI in corporate treasurers and the use cases about all these lessons. And then after that, at the end, a bit about how generative AI can be used in corporate treasury and with real world use cases with the future outlook. And it touch base also on the regulation, but it's just to give everyone a comfort about having the same definition of what it is and how generative AI is already impacting some of the work and the job in corporate treasury. And it's not only for finance, but we try to cover for any corporate company who have a treasury division will be able to take this program.
Tram, thank you so much for all of your comments today. And for those that are listening, the show notes will have information about CFTE and some links to their assets. Thank you so much, Tram.
Thank you so much, Greg, for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Treasury Update podcast. Be sure to follow Strategic Treasurer on LinkedIn. Just search for Strategic Treasurer. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and statements made by Strategic Treasurer LLC on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, consulting, or tax advice. For more information, visit and bookmark strategictreasurer.com.